Welcome back to Crimson Tales, where I bring fanfiction stories to life through narration.
This fan fiction story, Harry Potter, Lycan, is written by author Legendary Chaos. Now let's start the video. Yes, but what are we calling this grimoire? Fleur asked. She knew about the idea of making one, but they never discussed its name. Well, here attempted number one. Are you two ready? Daphne asked as the three gripped their wands. Out in the backyard, on a large square cement block, Harry looked down at a gray cover-bound book. By his side, Daphne and Fleur were gathered as Tonks just watched from a distance. While she was curious and wary on what they were doing, as most rituals were banned, she also knew some still do them in secret, with the ministry turning a blind eye unless someone died. Nodding, the trio raised their wand before pointing it down at the book. There was no wand waving or chanting, as this ritual didn't require it. For this one, all they had to channel their magic through their wand and at the object, the Infinity Grimoire. While the name is a bit childish, it is straight to the point. After all, we are aiming for infinity pages, to record all different types of magic we will learn in the future. Harry answered, while it may sound simple, it was also tricky, as it required at least three, all thinking of the same thing. If even one has a stray thought or isn't completely focused on the task, it will fail. The range failure also depends on how much magic was used before the failure. It could range from nothing to the book exploding into confetti, which is why they chose to do the ritual outside. As the tips of their wands gave off a slight tinge of light, the gray-covered bound book slowly began expanding. Once it was done expanding, a low red glow appeared on the cover, slowly burning an image. Moments the red glow vanished, leaving behind a wolf head wearing a loosely slanted crown. Its eyes seemed to glow with a hidden power as it drew you in with light hypnosis. Well, either I am ready for an encore, or this grimoire boosts one's arousal and desires, Fleur said as she looked down at the book. It's hard to tell, really. Harry, what? Can you blame me? Harry weakly defended himself. A smile broke out on the two girls' faces as they rolled their eyes at him. Even if they wore clothes covering them head to toe, he would probably have the same reaction. So, they were unsure if they should count it as a success or not. So, besides possible making a cursed object that boosts one's sex drive, I think it went pretty well, Daphne said as she picked up the freshly made grimoire and started flipping through. Moments after hurting the page, information of spells, potions, and odd bits of magic she knew appeared. Convenient. It even sorted itself into categories. Let me see, Fleur said as she took hold of it. Moments later, a similar effect took place, but no duplicates appeared. Well, that good. It would be annoying how many Lumos would appear some years. After being handed the book, the four watched as a large portion of combat magic appear and silly prank charms. Tonks looked at Harry, clearly confused at the amount of spells he knew. She almost wanted to bet he knew more than most of the older Aurors. But that shouldn't be possible, she thought before dashing the thought out of her head. So are you guys done? Yeah, Harry shrugged as he tucked the book away. Now, what do you guys plan to do? Harry could only shrug, as truthfully he just wanted to lay around and relax. It was a perfect time without classes, running his study groups, or working on the ritual to gather Voldemort's soul fragments. The bonus was he didn't need to hear Hermione nagging Ron about his homework in the common room. Well, I gotta give Hermione credit on being stubborn and persistent, Harry thought. I'm conflicted between playing in the pool or going shopping. Daphne said, I didn't bring a swimsuit. Tonks said before she felt a chill down her spine. Who says you need a swimsuit? Fleur grinned as she ran her tongue across her lips. Nymphadora Tonks just blushed hard as she heard Harry laughing. The blush did fade fairly rapidly afterwards, as she thought it was a joke. Sadly, she would learn it wasn't fairly soon. Thence, over the next few days, while Daphne or Apolline distracted Tonks, Harry and Fleur would sneak off for an hour or two. While Tonks caught on fairly quickly, since they either had that glow or wrinkled clothes, she never called them out and would pretend not to see, and tried to joke around with her abilities. Harry, what are you doing? Daphne asked. For the last few hours, while she splashed around in the pool with Fleur and Tonks, this time wearing a one-piece swimsuit, since she doesn't have her proud curves yet. Harry sat by the pool, slowly carving away at a fairly round branch, just over 14 inches long. I'm trying to make a wand. I infused some of my wolf hair into it from my animagus form. Would have done my phoenix form, but not quite there yet. Harry answered right before losing focus and watched as the wood magic rapidly decayed. And I would say I just failed. It takes years to learn, Harry. I believe you can become one of the best wand makers in the world in time, Fleur answered as she rested her arms on the side of the pool. Tonks instantly went silent as she chose not to comment and looked away. If that happened, it could go so bad for her so fast. If word got out, and with her current age compared to his, she could be arrested due to him being a minor. Harry could even probably get out if he played the victim card saying it was her idea and forced him. Sometime later, Fleur asked as she floated around on an inflatable tube, "Harry, do you think you can teach me the basics to become an animagus later?" "I don't see why not. It is not really hard, just time-consuming and requires a lot of focus," Harry answered. "You will need to find out what your first animal is, though." "I already did. It was a hedgehog. Cute, spiky on the outside and soft on the inside." Daphne laughed. "Daphne, what your form?" "A panda bear," Daphne said with a small blush. "It fits you. You are so cute but deadly with a wand or will be," Fleur said happily. "What are these three planning to become? Animagus?" Tonks wondered, as it was advanced magic that very few would devote time to. Now listening to them, she just figured it was a spontaneous idea, and they will give up. "Does Nymphadora want to learn?" Harry asked. "Don't call me that," Tonks retorted on reflex without thinking. "No, it's too time-consuming." Fair enough. While Harry was enjoying his break from school, it couldn't be said the same for the pack of redheads still at Hogwarts. As the squad of 5 scrubbed one of the many girls' bathrooms, the youngest son was complaining. His voice slowly grated on his sister and brother's nerves as they tried to tune him out. Why does Harry get to go to France? It's not like he has anyone or anything to do there. Ron moaned loudly. Wasn't he saying he was visiting a friend in the common room? Ginny answered before frowning. "I bet it's a woman too. Hopefully she won't get in the way of me getting my due fortune." While Fred and George listened, they could only shake their heads and pretend they didn't hear that. While they knew of their family plan, they didn't really like it, but couldn't really go against them either. While they are troublemakers, they didn't have the will or resolve to go against their family. Percy, on the other hand, didn't really care one way or another. He was more concerned about getting a job at the ministry and a new girlfriend. "I'm sure it will be fine, little sis. Besides, you're only 12 and may grow to like another person," Fred said. "Who says I love him? I just want his gold," Ginny said, blinking almost innocently. "Then our family can live happily like Mother says." "Brother, it's no use," George told his twin as they let out a deep sigh. Even if they weren't rich, the twins thought they were happy. Outside the bathroom, Susan Bones was covering her mouth before running off in order not to be caught. She needs to tell Harry and possibly her aunt. Hopefully, both of them have a plan or idea on what to do. In another part of the castle, the headmaster was sitting in an interview. Across from the aged wizard sat a man in his early 30s, wearing worn-out clothes and early gray hair. He could tell the man was nervous at the deal and ready to say no as he tried to make up an excuse. "Are you really going to turn down this opportunity? This is a chance to meet the son of your best friend." "But I'm a danger. And what if he hates me?" "He won't be like James or like that traitor," Remus Lupin replied. "Do you really not trust yourself that much?" Dumbledore asked with a sigh. "Even if I agree once I am found out, I will be out and your reputation will be in tatters. I am sure we can keep it pretty well hidden. You did a pretty good job during the time when you were a student. But I had my friends' help and support, or I would have been found out by 4th year at the latest." Dumbledore just let out another sigh as the brave child he once saw walk the hall was a shell of his former self. Not that he could blame the guy, as 2 of his friends died. Another faked his death, not that he knows, and one locked up for the killing of the last one. It takes a good one to live on, while a greater one to move on and could take on the world. "I'm sure we can work something out and get you the Wolfsbane potion." When he saw the man considering it, Dumbledore was pleased. If he can hire a decent data teacher, he could lessen Harry's load. Even if Harry says he was fine, it was plain to see. He is stressed and overworked. He also needs time to seduce others. Dumbledore thought as he wondered how young Nymphadora was doing. He was sure she was at least shocked and confused, wondering if Harry carried through or not yet. "How about you finish teaching out this year and we go from there?" Dumbledore finally said after he received no answer after a few minutes. "Very well, I accept your offer." "Excellent." Back at the Delacour, as the sun was going down and as Harry was laying beside the pool, as Fleur and Daphne were tanning, Tonks had decided to hop out once she saw the swimsuits coming off, leaving Harry to enjoy the view, even if he wants to see her join in due to her consent jokes. Back in Scottish Highland, an 111-year-old man sighed. Around him, the gizmos and walls from a 1,000-year-old castle seemed to hum. The sound of laughter and teen drama filled the halls as the centuries-old paintings gossips, dressed in colorful purple robes with his beard running down to his waist. The aged wizard peered over his crescent moon-shaped glasses at the document in hand. It was a letter from the Ministry Department of Education. "It's a bit slow, but luckily I got a replacement," he thought as he rubbed his forehead. The letter in hand was basically a warning that the ministry would install a teacher for defense against the dark arts. As luck would have it, and a sigh at politics attempted at entering the school, Dumbledore barely made the unknown deadline stated when he hired Remus in. Dolores Umbridge. "I sometimes wonder how Fudge stays in office," Dumbledore thought as he shook his head. Nearly all of Fudge's advisors and friends were only looking out for their own goals and money. So it was plain to see the magical world was stagnating and reverting when it concerns the well-being of Muggle-borns. As for allowing Dolores Umbridge to become a teacher, Dumbledore could only frown as he naturally remembered who she was. She was highly unremarkable during her time at Hogwarts, besides a clear dislike to being here and crave for power. If I remember, she barely passed by the skin of her teeth, so why would Fudge pick her to fulfill the role of teaching? While the aged wizard could only guess as he racked his brain, he could only come up with politics trying to interfere. Tossing the letter to the side, he let out a long breath as he leaned back in his chair. So much more paperwork filled his desk as stacks of new laws suggestions filled it. As the chief warlock of Wizengamot, he had to read over the suggestion before the next meeting. It would be nice if Harry's here. He always makes some comment when looking at the pros and cons of the suggested laws. While he began reading over the stacks of new Muggle-born laws aimed at restricting or some other nonsense like increasing their already high taxes, Dumbledore found his office door swinging wide open as Professor McGonagall strolled in. The look of annoyance and the depressing sigh told him it was a welcome visit. What has the Weasley squad done now? It is more what they haven't done. I just received a nearly 10-page essay from Percy on school rules and nearly 30 suggestions and why we need them. The twins charmed the toilet seats in the girls' bedroom to flash when they sit on them like a camera flash. The youngest son, mailed, ordered more Quidditch magazines instead of saving for a new wand again. Finally, the daughter is currently moaning to all because Harry Potter isn't at Hogwarts over Christmas. That bad? No, more than 40 students from all ages and houses are coming up and begging. Somehow, young Genevra managed to annoy most moaning and groaning all break. Even had some Slytherin running on into me. Tracy Davis was the front runner of that one. The deputy headmistress mentioned, finally it took nearly 40 minutes to get it through to her that she is disturbing others. Do we need to take precaution measures? Shaking her head. No, I think his bodyguard Harry should be fine. Actually, not that we are on the topic of Harry. He seems different than last year. Almost if he matured a few decades, and his spell work is easily 6th or 7th year, if not above. It is nice to hear his hard work at studying is paying off. Dumbledore smiled. As for maturing, he is entering his teen years. There is also the effect of having him teach most of the third half of the year. Maybe, but it is a bit much. The other odd thing I notice is him hanging out with a few girls and disappearing with Katie Bell, Daphne Greengrass, and Penelope Clearwater. Quite often, their robes are a bit wrinkled and a smile covers their faces. You're not seriously implying what I think you are you? Dumbledore asked. Heavens no, he is only 12, but I am curious. If I recall, Harry mentioned that they are playing a Muggle game called Twister. From what I've been told, it was a harmless party game where you put your hands and feet on different colors. I do know what the game is, Professor McGonagall said. My nieces and nephews showed me it, but I guess it does make sense. The two began chatting for a few more minutes before she left, leaving the Olden Wizard by himself. So much to do, yet so little time. In the depths of the Forbidden Forest, a hooded man with blood-red eyes and deathly pale skin laughed. Above him, the moon hung at peak as the night breeze ran through his ragged robes. After nearly 100 years, I have succeeded and have become immortal. Now it's time to spread my terror across Britain and then the rest of Europe. Roar! From the bushes nearby, a manticore slowly entered the man's view. It has a hairy human head followed by its lion body and scorpion tail. Oh. The man sneered. How dare you roar at me, you creature? Quick as lightning and barely faster than the naked eye, the man moved and slammed his ragged hands into the creature's head, as if cutting through butter. The man's hand slid through the humanoid head effortlessly. With this strength and speed, I will be unstoppable. The man laughed as he flicked the blood from his hand, leaving the corpse of a 5X beast rotting on the forest floor. Down in France, Harry, who was sleeping in many teen boys' fantasies surrounded by naked beauties, suddenly his eyes shot open as a bad premonition took root in his heart. A feeling that he gained after years of dealing with Voldemort and working as an Auror. He could feel something big was going to happen in the future. An event that didn't happen last time around. The last time this happened was in 2019 when the event known as Calamity happened. Right before he traveled back through time, chasing after his son Albus. Is the effects of time travel beginning to rear its head? Harry thought as he wondered when it would begin. A new feeling of dread appeared as it took months for it to appear, which wasn't good. I guess I will have to keep an eye out when I go back. Harry sighed as he thought it might have been a peaceful couple decades. Clearly he was mistaken, and truth be told, it was a bit excited as he grew to like life and death adventures, since he sort of lived in them for nearly 3 decades. Is something wrong, Harry? A sleepy Daphne asked. No, just another adventure of Harry Potter beginning, he whispered back. When the Hogwarts Express pulled to a stop, and many either excited or disappointed students exited, this signaled the end of winter break and school beginning once again. Among the younger students, smiles blossomed as they couldn't wait to find their friends and learn more magic. The older student in 5th and 7th years were slowly stressing as their OWL and NIW exam drew a day closer. Stepping off the train, a handsome teen with messy raven hair, emerald eyes appeared. Besides him, a blonde girl with blue eyes walked beside him, while a woman with bubblegum hair walked a few steps behind. A blush soon blossomed among their cheeks as their hands gripped the hems of their shirts. Welcome back, Harry! An energetic yell was heard from a slender, dirty blonde girl with wonderful brown eyes. Katie, did you miss me? Harry greeted as he picked her up and spun around. You smell like you had fun, she whispered into his ear. When is my turn? Later, he whispered. So, did you sink your claws into this one? Her scent is all over you, Katie asked, eyeing Nymphadora Tonks. Harry licked his lips as his eyes filled with lust before he pushed it down. While he only got a sample from that night, Flora brought her into the bed. That one sample got him craving for more. I only got a small sample, Harry admitted sadly, but I did get both hers and Daphne knickers in a game of poker on the train here. Shaking his head at her inability to lie to him and compulsion to tell him everything, Harry let out a sigh as he will need to keep her nearby, it seems. Otherwise, she seems to revert back just after her first transformation. Don't worry about that. It's more of a way to tease them than me wanting female underwear, if you say so, she mumbled, almost like pouting. Can we have our knickers back now, please? Daphne asked. Taking a sudden interest, Harry looked at her and basically told the story, or he won't give them back. At first, she seemed reluctant in telling, but as a particularly strong wind blew through, she quickly changed her mind. While neither were wearing skirts but pants, both girls shivered more than others. Fine. During my 6th year, a group of my friends and I decided to go a week without wearing any underwear. It was a dare, and the winner could boss the other 3 around for 2 weeks, within reason of. Tonks sighed. Within the first day, I nearly ended up flashing my goods to a large group. A first year named Roger on a dare too went around pulling down skirts and pants of the females. After nearly having mine pulled down, I withdrew from the dare. Last I heard, he was nearly expelled. Nodding, as that would be pretty terrifying for anyone who wasn't an exhibitionist. Harry decided to give them back their knickers, much to his amazement, as they both vanished into an empty classroom. A few moments later, they exited looking 10 times brighter. Tonks, you're supposed to be older than me. Why do I basically have you eating out of the palm of my hand? Harry thought as he headed towards the Great Hall. Stepping into the hall, Harry separated from Daphne and headed towards the Gryffindor table. There he found Ron and Hermione sitting apart, with both Fred and George snickering at some idea of theirs. Harry instantly decided that the two must have had a fight, and without him here to fix it, their fragile friendship must have broken apart. Since it didn't really matter to him if they were friends or not, he wasn't about to attempt to fix it. There is also the fact that he was distancing himself from them, and he wasn't going to start over. At least Hermione won't gain Stockholm Syndrome this time, Harry thought. Over the last few months, he slowly began reviewing his memories of Hermione in the future. In the end, however, this was the best he could come up with. What he had to go on.
Harry, mate, you're not going to believe it. You won't have to spend so much time studying, as Dumbledore seemed to hire a great teacher this time. Ron called out as he patted the empty spot next to him.
Sitting down, Harry looked up at the head table. In shock, he rapidly blinked as Remus Lupin sat up there. There in worn-out robes and early graying hair, he sat there trying to look presentable. A part of him was glad to see him again. However, his wolf side decided to rear its head. It felt like a wolf stepping into his territory without permission, and due to being male, he felt like he was being challenged for the alpha spot and territory. Managing to push the feeling down for the moment, Harry knew it was going to be bad on the next full moon. As if sensing his agitated state, Katie glared at the new defense professor. Harry could only smile bitterly as he did like the man, but he didn't think this would be an issue. Remus' already self-esteem is going to be even lower after dealing with Katie glares and his mixture of hard and soft glares. When the meal came to an end, Dumbledore stood up, drawing all the attention to him. His flashy robe and cheerful smile brought smiles to mostly everyone. First, I would like to welcome everyone back. Now, in the first order of business, I would like to greet our new Data professor who agreed to finish out the year. So give a warm welcome to Professor Lupin. A somewhat welcoming applause happened as everyone looked at the wary man. Most of the children that come from money looked down on him for his clothes and looks, while the some that didn't care give a few claps, then stopped. The second announcement I have is that the large study group hosted by Harry Potter is now disbanded, while he can still host them only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Finally, I would recommend 5th and 7th years join. Overstudying can be the same as not studying at all. A mixture of boos and cheers happened, making Harry wonder if most didn't like his lessons. He always tried to make them fun, from a mixture of pranking spells to combat spells. When he quickly looked around, he saw it was mostly Slytherin and older students, most who he had to help out quite a bit as they struggled to handle a second year knowing more than them. Luckily, it was mostly guys that did it, as the girls clapped with smiles on their faces, which means hopefully they will appear at the study group and he maybe can get them in after group activities. I really need to stop thinking with my second head, Harry thought as he looked at the not-so-good-looking ones. While he knows they are really nice and all, they just didn't fit his tastes. As for the final announcement, the girls' bathroom that had been pranked has finally been cleaned up. Dumbledore said as nearly every female sent dagger-filled glares to the pranking twins. Now have a good den. While he felt a slight ping of hurt as she talked about other males during their time, Harry felt his wolf side rise and rapidly took over his body. As if he was locked in his own body, he felt like a spectator as the wolf devoured Nymphadora Tonks. Her screams of terror as it ripped her throat out and body open, devouring her organs as she drowned in her own blood. The wolf didn't stop there and began devouring her hands and arms before moving towards her legs. By the end, only bones were left as the wolf happily chewed on them. Feeling sick at what he witnessed, Harry barely noticed the black fog slowly raising from the blood-covered sheets. Slowly, it took the form of a man with snake-like features. His eyes were sunken in and had no lips. You will lose, Harry Potter, the spectre hissed at him. Voldemort. Harry screamed. Wanting to attack the spectre, Harry launched towards it, but his world rapidly spun. Quickly sitting up, Harry looked around his dorm room, realizing it was a nightmare. In his arrogance, he had forgotten about the Horcrux in his head being able to induce nightmares. Climbing out of bed and dressing himself, Harry, even if he knew it to be a nightmare, wanted to check on Tonks. Silently going down to the common room, he shifted into and ran out of the room. Sniffing the air, he quickly locked on to Tonks' scent and followed it, running on all fours. As his paws hit the stone floors, Harry slid around corners until he arrived at a painting of a maiden holding an apple. Shifting back, he stood in front of the surprised painting as she nearly dropped her arrow. "Can you get Nymphadora for me?" Harry asked. "Sure thing, darling," the woman replied before vanishing out of the side of her painting. A few minutes later, the painting swung open, revealing a live and tired Tonks. While she wore the same clothes from his dream, they weren't falling off her body. "Did you need something?" she asked. "I had a nightmare where you were brutally murdered, so I had to make sure you were okay," Harry said straightforwardly, while leaving out he was the culprit, as it wasn't important. "Oh, well, I am still alive, as far as I know. Now go back to bed, Harry. It just passed midnight." Blinking at the time, Harry didn't really feel like returning back to the dorms, so bring out his best puppy eyes. "Let me stay with you. I might have a nightmare again." Rolling her eyes at him, Tonks didn't refuse and moved to the side, letting him enter. For the next few hours, Harry napped in the arms of his bubblegum beauty's arms. A month has passed by since winter break came to an end. Over that time, not much has changed at Hogwarts, or at least in Susan Bones' opinion, besides having a proper teacher for defense against the dark arts, and not having Harry Potter teach it. The school was almost normal as it was last year, filled with teen angst and drama. Susan said almost as there has been something on her mind since winter break. It was Harry Potter's harem, or what many older boys in Hufflepuff calls it. At first, she was sure they were all just friends like she was, as most were in his study group. However, now she wasn't so sure, as she could see admiration and slight glows from them from time to time. For some reason, that glow bugged her, as she didn't know what it was. At first, she thought it was the afterglow, like she had with Hannah, but dismissed it for once she saw Penelope and Tonks. She didn't believe that the two older girls would sleep with a 12-year-old boy. "Susan, what are you thinking about?" a pretty blonde asked from across from her. While they only did the deed once and decided to stay friends, Susan still felt a bit guilty for taking her virginity. "I don't know, Hannah. Harry's group seems to have that glow again. What do you think they're doing? It's almost every other day they gain it." Shrugging her shoulders, Susan wonders if she should accept Harry's invitation for one-on-one studying. While she doesn't feel like she needs it, she thought it might help get the answer that was bugging her. "I will ask him tonight," Susan determined. In another part of the castle later on, Daphne sighed as she pictured Susan Bones in her mind. While Daphne knew Susan was a red-haired beauty, she knew something changed. In the last timeline, Susan didn't rapidly grow or began turning into a bombshell this early or perfect. The thought of them changing the timeline came to mind, but Daphne dismissed it. She didn't believe changing events would change someone's physical growth so much. Was she also a returner? Daphne thought, but dismissed it, as either her or Harry would have caught the change. The main factor would have been the changes in history, and memories would have left her stumped.
"Daphne, are you okay?"
Tracy asked when she noticed her friend zoning out. "Peachy." Daphne watched her friend roll her eyes at her. It was clear she didn't believe her, and truth be told, she felt the same. She just wasn't sure why it bugged her as she made peace with Harry sleeping with others. Now she saw one of her yearmates becoming a beautiful girl that could be on par or better than Fleur. "Am I being jealous?" Daphne sighed to herself. Accepting that she is. A weight felt like it was lifted off her shoulders. Daphne was left confused on what she should do. A part of her believed everything would be fine, but another part was worried Harry would leave her, which she found impossible, as she was part of his pack and lover. "I'm just being stupid," she finally said to herself, worrying about something useless. "Daphne, talk to me. I am still your friend, aren't I?" "Of course. What made you think you weren't?" Daphne asked. "You haven't talked to me much or hung out. Truth be told, even when we do, your mind is somewhere else." "Ha! Oops! Noah! Oops!" Daphne thought, "I'm sorry, it's just been a weird year. I know, since you helped Harry basically run data for the last few months, so I will forgive you this time." Tracy let out a sigh before grinning. Shaking her head, Daphne just smiled at being forgiven so easily. Daphne was glad to have an easygoing friend. "You're getting better." "I would hope so." Inside a classroom, Harry was watching Neville making a first-year portion. The boy had asked him to tutor him in potions. At first, he was hesitant to agree to tutor in potions, but Dumbledore managed to convince him. Thinking back to the conversation, Harry decided even with his decades of experience was no match for Dumbledore. "Harry, I will not ask you to drop your grudge against the Weasleys, even if you are just pranking them here and there. However, why don't you agree in tutoring Neville? Currently, he is a 12-year-old boy, and not the man he became." "Don't." "No stirring. It only been 5 minutes, not 10. Harry sighed, now feeling Snape's issues with teaching. Some just seem borderline impossible to help. Some days.
At least with spells, they would either backfire or not work. Harry sighed before almost banging his head on the table. Neville, it's not yet time to stir. Hands off.
Katie, have you been working out? Angelina asked as she grabbed Katie's tone, almost ab-stomach.
A bit.
Why? She responded, blinking at the sudden touch. When? We haven't seen you work out much outside of practice.
Early in the morning. Usually only Harry is up at the time. Katie shrugged, as she had a similar issue as Harry. However, unlike him, she usually just studies in her room instead of the common room.
I didn't know that. When do you two sleep then? Alicia asked, since as far as she knows, the two usually are night owls. At night? Katie answered, looking confused at the weird question. Laughing at her confusion, Katie pouted at her two friends. Clearly, they found something funny in her answer. But she didn't understand. It had been a few months since she was bitten, so she thought it was normal to only sleep a few hours for her. Well, you've been getting more beautiful, so what's your secret? Have I? Katie asked, not really noticing. I bet she got a boyfriend. No, I don't. Katie denied, as she considered herself Harry's mistress wife. Oh, then girlfriend? Alicia asked. Shaking her head again, Katie decided to return the favor at trying to embarrass her. So I heard you two are dating the Weasleys twins. Is it true? Please. There is no way I would date them. All they know how to cause trouble. Angelina said, but it didn't sound convincing in the least. Yeah. Alicia also nodded, shrugging as she wasn't going to continue as it wasn't as fun as she thought it would be. Katie decided to shift the topic towards Quidditch, something the two latched onto quickly and soon dissolved into gossip. Up in the Dumbledore's office, unlike others who were having a relaxing stay in the castle, the elderly wizard received news from an old friend. In the letter, it stated that a small village was turned into the undead. It also mentioned that it was suppressed before they could spread, but the town has already been discovered by the Muggles. This might be bad for the magical world. There are no clues to who's behind the attack. Dumbledore sighs and quickly drafted a letter to thank his friend. It was both fortunate and unfortunate. It happened outside of magical Britain, or Fudge would suppress it before it too late. I got a bad feeling about this. A few days later, in a classroom, Harry found himself chatting with Susan Bones. While it was a surprise for her to accept his offer on her own accord, it took months to wear her down, and it grew hard to hold himself back as he smelled her arousal for the last month and a half.
Then what am I doing wrong?
On the desk, a red apple sat with half of it turned to stone, while the other was perfectly fine. He was currently helping her with a third-year transfiguration spell. The spell in question was the hardening charm, which turns objects to stone. While most use it to prank their friends, it can cause serious damage in battles. Are you focusing completely on turning it to stone? Yes? Blinking at her, Harry didn't really believe her. Raising his value scale wand, he quickly undid the spell work she did. The stone quickly vanished, leaving behind a perfectly fine red apple. Why am I not surprised at your silent casting? Susan grumbled. While he did show it while he hosted his study group from time to time, he usually did verbal casting when he demonstrated a spell. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. After all, verbal casting is more so for helping with focusing when casting. Sure, whatever you say. Whatever, try again. This time, focus and imagine turning the entire apple to stone. Pulling up her wand once again, she formed a shape in the form of a dud. Duro. The red apple rapidly turned gray and gained a grainy-looking surface, poking the stony-looking apple. I believe you got it. It wasn't that hard, Susan stated proudly, puffing her chest out. Oh, really? Then do you want to attempt silent casting? Ending the conversation there, Susan chose not to accept the challenge as she didn't believe she could do it. To her who grew up in the magical household, she accepts the limited views of magic of what many can achieve or the age to achieve them. So, in her view, Harry, who already achieved silent casting at his age, she considers a genius of the highest order. If you can succeed, I got a surprise for you, Harry tempted her. You can wish for anything within reason. Many thoughts flew through Susan's head before she gained a determined look in her eyes. Off to the side, Harry also smelled her aroused, state spiked. If that is her motivation, I am not going to complain. Harry thought to himself as he felt his blood running south, but didn't get too excited. Tapping the apple and dispelling it once again, Harry watched as Susan pointed her wand at the apple. At first, nothing happened on the first or even seventh try. Frustration slowly sat in on the beautiful redhead face as she tried so hard. I got it, she shouted as the apple turned to stone. Yeah, it only took an hour to do. Harry nodded. What do you have in mind for your reward? Blushing hard, Susan's eyes instantly drifted down to his crotch and her clothes. As if making her mind fairly quickly, she began sliding out of her robes and standing in front of him in only a blue bra and panties.
I want you to watch me masturbate,
she said. Many thoughts ran through Harry's head as he blinked once, then twice. He wasn't sure if he heard her correctly or not. What did you say? I said, I want you to watch me masturbate, she said. Why? Because ever since I was caught, it hasn't been the same since, Susan said, thinking back on her friend Hannah walking in. Disappointment sat in for Harry as he thought he might have finally had a chance to claim her. Now it felt like he was shot down and could only watch as she pleasure herself. Not that it was a great loss, but he still held out hope. Fine. Time passed by, with a couple weeks coming and going. The professors felt time passing by quickly, while the students felt it pass by slowly. Only the 5th and 7th years were silently praying for more time to study. Sitting in Dumbledore's office, Harry was chatting with the aged headmaster. The talk had no real relevance to anything happening in the world, or the ritual to collect all the soul pieces of Tom Riddle. In fact, the talk has to do with a certain manga in the aged wizard hands. I got to hand it to the Muggles. They sure know how to make entertaining stories, the century-old wizard Albus Dumbledore said. In his hands, the first volume of Dragon Ball with the next 3 sitting beside him. But they do, and it sucks time traveling. Instead of waiting a few months for the next season, I am now waiting decades. I'm not even sure that the series might exist due to my and my 2 lovers' London traveling. Harry groaned. Indeed, but it is too late to change anything now. You have already changed quite a bit from what I gathered. Yeah, and I don't really regret it, but this mysterious guy who turned a village into the undead has me worried. Whoever they are didn't appear last time around. I wonder where they came from. Harry frowned. Recently, Hagrid stumbled upon the remains of a manticore who he determined was killed instantly and without magic. Nearby the site, he also found a large hole in the ground, with a laboratory of sorts. Dumbledore.
Frowning as this didn't ring any bells in his head. Harry soon put a theory together nonetheless. If these 2 events are connected, the only reason I can guess why it happened this time around and not last time is because of the basilisk. It might have killed whoever was responsible last time, but since I killed the snake early, they lived.
Dumbledore's hand gently slid over his long beard as he could agree with the conclusion. It was very similar to his own theory. Where his theory diverts from Harry, however, is the laboratory was discovered last time around that the other him mustn't have told Harry, which would make sense since he would only be any other 12-year-old boy at the time. Shall we go check out the site? Harry asked, a bit eager to explore the unknown. I do believe a full moon is coming up. Why don't you and Katie explore it then? Dumbledore replied. I also trust that you have been doing good on your other monthly problem. Yeah, and I have slowly been expanding the current group. Harry said all there was to be said. He wasn't about to explain his sex life with the headmaster, and he's sure the old man doesn't want to listen either. Also, we were good, so none of the girls are pregnant.
That is good. Now let's get back on track.
I do believe you got enough of a handle on potions so we can begin alchemy or elixir portion of it, Dumbledore said. Now, Harry, you must understand. While elixir is indeed stronger than potion, they are also much more fussy and explosive if you make even the tiniest error, which is why there is a lack of alchemists and elixirs on the market, as most blow themselves up on accident. Nodding Harry remembered showing up in some areas after a beginner alchemist blew themselves up. Some were more nasty than others, as there once was one that imploded, leaving their skin and bones all across the rooms. There, however, wasn't much blood, as the contentions they were making vaporized most of it. Now, Harry, about your idea of creating your own Dragon Balls. Why choose alchemy, since transfiguration and charms with a bit of runes will have the same effects? For the challenge, plus charms and transfiguration might wear off in the future. Dumbledore just nodded, as it was similar to his friend Nicholas Flamel. That man loved to solve or do challenges when alchemy was involved, so he accepted Harry's reasoning pretty easily, even if he was just curious as to why. Do you have any ideas on where to begin? Rubbing his chin, Harry thought for a moment. I would assume calculating and preparing the materials to form the 7 fist-size balls. After that, is to begin making the 7 orange orbs and placing the stars inside, finally linking them so they gain a slight glow when they're next to each other. Are you going to infuse some dragon essence into them? Maybe even the feature of a dragon raising out of them? Maybe, but one step at a time. After chatting some more and planning, Harry left the office to find his girls, leaving the aged wizard to his paperwork.
Hi, Harry.
Her voice squeaked and ran away. Looking at the sprinting form of Ginny, Harry just shook his head as a slight shiver ran down his spine. While he didn't hate the Weasleys as much as he did upon his returning, he still planned to limit his contact with them. Maybe they need another prank, Harry thought, and wondered what he should do. Valentine is just around the corner. Maybe a letter about a male hooker discount and him awaiting his return for Percy, women underwear for the twins, and maybe prank candy for Ron. What to do for Ginny thought. None of my ideas really fit her current age. Oh ho! It looks like you have an admirer. Are you planning to devour her in the future when she is older? Tonks attempted to tease him about Ginny, but received a hard and nearly cold glare in return. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Harry growled. Geez, lighten up, Tonks said while making a mental note not to bring up Ginny or Weasleys again. Clearly something happened, and she decided to ask Daphne, as she might know later. Not really wanting to admit he was a bit harsh, Harry dragged her to a nearby classroom. Both walked out an hour later with Tonks limping a bit in her step and slight glow about her. Clearly refreshed and not grumpy anymore at her comment. Harry had a slight smile on his lips. During the summer, I learned that the Weasleys were beginning to steal from me, Harry explained. That still doesn't explain your amount of dislike. It was just the start. I also learned they had plans that involved loyalty potions and love potions in the future. If their plans come true, then it will basically be the end to the Potter fortunes and more the beginning of the Weasleys' fortune. Sighing as she began understanding the issue he had with the herd of redheads, she could still feel there was something more, but decided to let it go for now. He will tell her if or when he is ready. Harry, how come you growl like a wolf during sex? Tonks asked as she began wondering that. Blinking Harry was stumped on how to answer that. He wasn't sure if he should tell her yet or not. About that, in the end, when Nymphadora asked about his growling, Harry just said he would explain later. From there, she seemed to gain a bit of enlightenment and looked at him in shock. Harry just assumed she guessed he has a thing for doggy style or has a kink for wolves. Since then, days passed until the night of the full moon came around once again. Originally, he planned on attempting not transforming, but the news of the laboratory got him curious. Now changing his plan as it would be too dangerous to not transform while being in the forest at night, due to some creatures being buffed due to the full moon and going into the unknown with the lack of information. Harry decided in the end to wait another month to try it out. Now a time to relax until the coming full moon and maybe find a stressed out 5th or 7th year or two. In another part of the castle, Daphne was currently reading over some rarer tomes lost in time thanks to the Room of Requirements. Suddenly, a feeling of Harry seeking out some females ran through her body. Pulling out her black book, she looked at the small list of names and smiled. So he finally began seeking different women since, until now, he was more focused on our friend group, she thought with a hum. Took a bit longer than I thought it would. Walking the corridors as he followed his sensitive nose, Harry frowned. He was currently hunting, but only found 2 60-year boys in a closet. That was an image he didn't want to remember, but it will be burned into his mind for the next while. Where are all the girls at? He wondered as he smelled quite a few female pairing frequenting the area. The current hallway was known for quick hookups or lovers to vanish to. However, he currently couldn't find anyone and classes are done. Even his ears couldn't pick up anyone nearby, making him punch the wall, putting a fish-shaped hole. Due to the full moon growing closer, Harry's emotions were heightened, as were his abilities. Normally, he would keep his emotions in check, but his hunger for girls made him irritable. While he could go find one of his girls, it took longer for him to feel satisfied, or taking multiple of them. Some of them are not really into doing it with him, with other girls nearby, but will do it. In the end, after failing to find any, he headed towards Gryffindor Tower. It was time to take back his Marauder's map, as this was a good cause to grab it. Stepping into the common room, he quietly whispered the summoning spell once he saw it empty. A slightly aged parchment came flying down and landed in his hands. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. Harry watched as the map unfolded itself and names of everyone in the castle appearing well beside Daphne. He currently knew she was in the hidden room, which was unplottable. After a moment, he found the calls why he couldn't find any girl. Besides Hermione and a few first years, nearly every girl was in the infirmary, banging his head against the wall. Harry actually forgot it was the day Madame Pomfrey does a health check on them. It is mostly to try and find diseases before it spreads or if a girl is pregnant. "Harry, what are you doing in the common room?" Professor Vector broke Harry out of his current thoughts. She was a slightly aged woman, appearing in her late 30s, despite being in her late 40s to early 50s. On her head was a large red hat, matching her red robes that were slightly wrinkled. With one sniff of the air, Harry smelled a couple seventh-years boys on her as with the smell of sex. Shaking his head at that, Harry wasn't going to say anything or point it out. While it was wrong of her, the seventh years are mostly considered adults in the wizarding world, so he didn't really care all that much if they screw a teacher or not. "I came to grab something." Harry shrugged before turning and leaving. As the portrait swung close, he heard a sigh of relief, shaking his head as apparently Professor Vector thought she got away with it. In another part of the world, the Undersecretary of Minster Fudge was currently frowning. The recent Wizengamot gathering didn't go as she planned. For Umbridge, this was unacceptable, and she owes it all to a letter Harry Potter sent. She didn't know how he knew she planned to impose taxes on anything she considered a creature or impure. However, he knew and presented two different views on how this will affect their world, so much that he even gained votes from even the die-hard purebloods to veto her bills. This is all his fault. A 12-year-old playing in an adult world. How dare he? She growled as her eyes narrowed. Thoughts of eliminating him soon filled her head, but the question on how remained a mystery. She couldn't use Dementors due to him being at Hogwarts or around Dumbledore outside of school. The news of him being taken as an apprentice still rang around in her head. If soul-sucking demons were out, Umbridge was slightly at a loss. Next was hiring a hit wizard, but finding one willing on her budget wasn't an option. Embezzling wasn't an option, as she already hit this month limit, or even Fudge would notice. Maybe I should use a mutt? If the boy that lived became a werewolf, he should lose all the support. Umbridge thought, as a smile broke out on her face. This will save future trouble he may cause. Now who should I use? Funra Greyback came to mind, but he was out of the country, and she had no way of silently contacting him. A few other unknown came to mind, but she ran into a similar issue. Truthfully, she soon realized there wasn't anyone as most of them outside the country. This requires more thinking. Inside his office, Remus had a small shiver running down his spine. He wasn't sure, but it was going to be bad. Am I going to miss this month's dose of Wolfbane? He wondered. Bye, Zoe and Sue. See you two next year. Bye, Harry. Have a good summer. Two girls giggled as they left an empty classroom with an all-familiar glow. In the doorway, as he straightened his clothes, Harry watched the two swaying bottoms before they turned down another corridor. While the two girls couldn't be compared to Fleur or Tonks, they were slightly above average. Zoe had an average physique with black hair tied back into a ponytail, reaching her waist, while Sue, on the other hand, had short light blonde hair with both working light blue eyes. These two were his latest feast and friends with benefits similar to the deal he has with Penelope. Something that saddened him, as in a few days, that deal was coming to an end as the school year was coming to an end. She will be graduating and moving on with her life, and him doing the same. Time just seemed to fly by these last few months, as not much has happened beside getting lucky with girls. Harry frowned as he recalled the night he and Katie checked out the laboratory Dumbledore told him about. It was the night of the full moon, and Harry snuck out of the castle with Katie. Due to snow being on the ground, Katie decided to wear clothes for a change. While being a lichen gave them some resistance to the cold, they could still get frostbite or freeze to death. It would just take longer compared to others. Quickly transforming into their wolf forms with black fur covering his body as he landed on all four, he led the way through the forest with Katie following in her dark brown wolf form. Both of them were serious as they ran through the forest, as neither knew what laid ahead. Inside the laboratory, and bodies upon bodies that were clearly experimented on were lining the walls. Not all had every limb or even their skin attached with some being human or some magical creature. Blood vials sat on the table, where notes upon notes sat, all detailing whoever the lab wish was. Immortality. While countless chased after this, some more vile than others, this was in the top 5 he has seen and wished he hadn't. The perpetrator had kidnapped countless orphans and homeless from the mundane communities. Not only that, he has even captured werewolves, vampires, and any other species with long lives or enhanced body features. Even a cyclops, which was said to be in the top 10 strongest creatures, were experimented on for their strength. The amount that lost their lives to this madman easily in the hundreds if not thousands. Also, he could become immortal with incredible strength, speed, and magical strength. If the man was truly an immortal or not didn't really enter Harry's radar. He has met quite a few maniacs claiming to be immortal, but only one truly was. In the end, he still met a sad fate at Harry's hand when he separated the man's head from his body. After that, he tossed the man through the portal of death that claimed the life of his godfather. Did you bond with those two? An amused voice broke Harry out of his flashback, turning around to a 14-looking blonde-haired girl with blue eyes smiling with a black book in hand. A smile blossomed on his face as he shook his head. Nope, but did get friends with benefits until they graduate next year. Harry responded. Slightly disappointed, are you? Not really sure why, but over the last few months, Daphne found herself going through her puberty nearly a year early than last time around, something both of them enjoyed very thoroughly. No, but Harry's summer nearly here. Do you have a schedule or plans in place? Daphne asked. Or do you plan to hire a nocturne hooker? Harry frowned, as truthfully he didn't have a plan for his needed monthly hookup, while he might get away with it, visiting Katie and Fleur for 2 months. When he visits them, there weren't any current set dates when he will be there. Maybe when the full moon arrives, both Katie and I should be in the Forbidden Forest. We could get in a quick round or two, fulfilling the need? Dark lines formed on Daphne's forehead as she listened to his idea and shook her head. She really wanted to rub her forehead, but she expected this. It only involves his life, after all. You're lucky that I already planned this to happen, Daphne said. Oh, yes, some of your friends with benefits have agreed to meet you at Diagon Alley for a day date in either the magical or mundane world. They are scheduled at 2-week intervals, stating the first week after school dealt out. I'm not even going to ask how, but thanks. Of course I nor Fleur can have you dying on us again. Daphne puffed her chest out. So when are we scheduled to do the ritual? During June. We don't really know the effects it will have. So Dumbledore suggested when most teachers and students are away. Nodding as she agreed, the two chatted for a few more moments before going separate ways. Both had their own plans, since Harry had to work on his alchemy project, and Daphne was busy recording unique spells from the Room of Requirements. Not far behind them, hiding behind a pillar, a bushy hair girl was staring wide-eyed. From the snips she heard from the conversation, she assumed that Harry was dying. It would explain his behavior at the start of the year, and secretary, following him for the whole year, finally paid off. She hummed, but wondered what she should do about it. If he is truly dying, she wants to help, but she neither has the knowledge or a clue what it is dying from. Maybe it will be in his file in Madame Pomfrey's office, Hermione thought. Don't worry, Harry. I will save you. When Hermione left, a spacey-eyed blonde just tilted her head at her before shaking her lovely small head. She just felt the girl got a wrong idea and ran with it, which will lead to something funny later on. I guess I will tell Harry later after we are done studying. Luna thought as she skipped away. As the final school days wind down with all students ready for summer and a few professors, Dumbledore sat at the head table smiling as the OWL and NEOT exam were finished. Now all stressed 5th and 7ths were relaxed, while praying they'd done well. While his blue eyes fell on a certain Emerald Eye student, he silently observed that student grinning as he waved at some older girls and sent some winks. Mentally laughing at the display, his eyes soon turned to disappointment when they landed on a brown-haired girl. Last evening, she was caught trying to sneak into the infirmary and attempting to steal another student file. While she may have been successful if he wasn't there chatting with Madame Pomfrey, he had to give her slight credit for advanced spell use. But sadly, he couldn't, as it was for a bad cause. After his eyes moved on to the pack of redheads who worked hard to stay this year. While he admired their hard work for one so young, he was slightly disappointed with the youngest son. While Ronald could become an impressive young wizard, his laziness and growing jealousy got in the way. Now barely scrapping by to progress onto the 3rd year, as he didn't have Harry or Hermione helping him. Dumbledore could only sigh as he saw this happen quite a few times as a professor and headmaster. Most tend to be poorer, pure bloods or muggle-born, but most grow out of it by their 7th year, if not sooner. However, if Harry's words still rang true despite the changes in the timeline, Ron still has a long road ahead of him. Soon, the sound of wings flapping filled the hall as the morning mall came in. Students smiled as letters appeared before them. However, a frown soon appeared on Lupin's lips as he looked at the letter. Something bad filled his being as a unique smell appeared. The smell was sweet, almost mind-numbing for Lupin as he began smiling as his best memories surfaced. His memories of being part of the Marauders alongside James, Sirius, and Peter with their multitude of pranks. However, his smile soon vanished as they turned to horror as his mind filled with screams of the dying and torture. An intense rage took over as the Great Hall vanished from his view and Harry turned into Sirius Black. Insane laughter was soon heard as it appeared as if Sirius began casting the killing curse and Peter begging for mercy. Despite knowing what he was seeing was fake, Remus still felt the need to save his long-dead friend, frantically searching for his wand, but quickly realizing he didn't have it. Using the best thing in his opinion, Remus threw himself towards Sirius. Even if burden and curse caused him misery all his life, having a slightly stronger body than others did have an advantage. When he reached out, he quickly realized that his hand wasn't normal, but claws from his werewolf form. His form quickly changed from human to his sickly wolf form. Roar! A few moments earlier, Harry was winking towards a pair of twins who were graduating this year. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine as his head wiped towards the head table. There he saw his honor uncle, receiving a letter and smiling. However, his form quickly began changing. "Get away from him now," Harry shouted when he saw Remus transforming. Screams quickly filled the Great Hall as the students rushed for the doors. Some of the professor quickly moved into action, either trying to contain the werewolf or calm down the panicking students. Quickly transforming himself into his wolf form, Harry quickly landed on 4 paws as his black fur emerged as white fur formed a lightning bolt of his eye. Pouncing towards the sickly-looking wolf with a snarl, Harry barely managed to save Professor McGonagall from the jaws snapping at her. Due to sitting near Remus before his transformation, she was at the most risk of being clawed or bitten. Green! Harry growled at the large wolf. He bashed away, destroying the wooden chairs, circling the wolf like a shark that smelled blood. Their growls and jaws, snapping, filled the hall as most evacuated towards safety. As if a signal was giving, Harry clashed against Remus, with his teeth clamping down on the sickly-looking arm. A loud crack soon followed, as Harry's powerful jaws broke the arm before jumping back, dodging the jaws heading towards him. Circling again, looking for the advantage, Harry watched as a dark brown wolf joined the fray. Her powerful legs landed on Remus's back, kicking him to the ground. Seeing the opportunity to attack once more, Harry jumped and rammed his body against Remus's head that looked away, barely knocking him out, panting, as he transformed back with Katie doing the same. They looked down at the unconscious wolf with a frown.
"Professor, do you know what is going on?"
Harry asked Dumbledore, who was examining the letter. "I believe it is a powerful and very harmful potion known as Moon Dew," Dumbledore replied, though he sounded uncertain. This handwritten note, however, I recognized. A certain undersecretary known as Dolores Umbridge. "Moon Dew?" Katie asked, backing away, unsure if it will affect her. "Moon Dew, a very powerful potion that can force a werewolf transformation like what just occurred. However, that is just one aspect, and that it causes hallucination that can affect anyone. It forces you to relive your best memories before twisting your view and making you go berserk," Professor Snape replied in a monotone voice. "It was created in an attempt to cure werewolves, I believe," Harry added. "However, it turned out badly and thus banned. It also takes nearly a whole year to brew, thus very difficult to tend." Young Harry is right, and the Ministry has standing orders. If it discovers it is supposed to be destroyed on the spot, Dumbledore added. Now the question, however, is how she got her hands on this particular potion, and why send it to Remus. I believe it to do with a certain celebrity. If I recall, he forced Wizengamot to veto her attempts at rising taxes and such on magical creatures. Werewolves, to be more exact. Snape commented before his eyes drifted over Harry. Shaking his head, Harry just couldn't see what she hoped to achieve, unleashing a berserk werewolf at Hogwarts, a place where children of those in seats at Wizengamot currently attend. This just seems like political suicide, if any of them were bitten as they would have her head once it discovered. Why would she want revenge? There are many dumbasses in the world, Katie. It's better not to question their thinking capacity at times, Harry commented before receiving glares from a few professors, but none called him out. Well, now that this incident is over, shall we calm the students? Dumbledore suggested and headed towards the door. Oh, and 100 points to each of you for your quick actions.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fanfiction. See you next time.